What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. I'm Noah Streckbine, joined always by my main man, Jacob Punturi. Find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talkers. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. The Pittsburgh Steelers are set to head into a weekend with no black and gold football. Very excited for what comes on the other side of it. If you ask Ben Roethlisberger, I've said it all week. I'll say it again. It's a second bye week, but we'll get to that when we get to that. In the meantime, major injury news in a positive way for the Pittsburgh Steelers with both their starting wide receiver and their starting running back, plus a very rare moment by the one and the only Colin Cowherd that we will dive into, and I am thrilled to dive into later. If we got time, we're going to pick all of the games for the NFL slate this weekend. It's a beautiful one out here in the Berg. Big news in the Strackbine household today. We, as of last night, left T-Mobile because T-Mobile stinks and headed back over to Verizon because, as we talked about yesterday, being an adult, the hardest thing that they do not teach you is that cell phones really are scam and they get you. But shout out my boy Elijah. Almost called him Eli. Don't know if he goes by Eli. Elijah over at Verizon on Penn Ave. That dude did some crazy work for us. Got us a good deal. I was very excited for it. And I told him he stayed about 3 hours after he was supposed to clock out to help us out. So got to give my boy a shout out on that one. Yeah, absolute warrior. Feels good to have some coverage for the first time, which means I'm in a great mood. Hope you are as well. How you feeling, my friend?
Man, I am elated for you. I mean, I have heard often how much trouble your previous provider was giving you. So I think we can all rejoice with you in this new chapter that you are about to embark on. I'm doing good, man. Weekends here, no Steelers football, so I feel a little lost for the weekend, I would say,
Yes.
but I'm trying to just figure it out regardless. So I'm all good. As you mentioned, it's a beautiful day here in Pittsburgh, so can't complain too much.
No complaints. It was a good one. You got any plans for the weekend? Because I'm going to do a little golfing, which is very exciting, and then we're doing mum shopping. So I don't know about you, but that's as good as it gets for a Strackbine household here.
That's good stuff. I think we might have some Halloween decorating on the radar this weekend. We are a spooky spoopy household over here.
The Pinturi
So
household is already a little spooked out. It's nice from the outside. Let me tell you, it gives me a little smile whenever I drive by. Shout out to you guys. Hope it's a good one. Let's talk some Pittsburgh Steelers of football. The Steelers got two very positive injury updates over the last couple of days here. The first one is with Jaylen Warren, who our buddy Nick Fairbaugh says is going to be back on the field in week 6 against the Cleveland Browns, which is a major boost for the offense, even after Kenny G's phenomenal performance for 99 yards and 2 touchdowns, averaging 5.2 yards per carry in week 4 against the Minnesota Vikings. Then our buddy Mike DeFabo with The Athletic let it be known that Calvin Austin had negative x-rays on his shoulder and, well, to quote him, may not miss time. Quote, x-rays on Calvin Austin's third shoulder came back negative, according to league source, which is good news. I don't know yet if he'll miss time with the injury or not. That is massive for the Pittsburgh Steelers. If he does not miss time, that means that they do not have to find a replacement. It quiets a lot of conversation about Scotty Miller, Roman Wilson. If you're going to go outside the organization, I mean, I want your thoughts on Calvin Austin not missing time, the potential of him not missing time, but also at the same time, I want your thoughts on do you rush Calvin Austin back from an injury, or do you view it as it's week 6? Maybe it's okay to miss a game or two.
I guess it is, rationally speaking, it is okay to miss a game or two for Calvin Austin, right? Like even if if he misses 2 games hypothetically and they lose both of them, you're still looking at 3-3 with 11 games to play. So lots of room to work with. Your season is not ruined by any stretch. That being said, I don't think the Steelers have the luxury of patience with this position. I think on the defensive side of the ball, they could really be as patient as they want to be, like with Jalen Ramsey, to use another example. But with Calvin Austin, I've voiced my lack of belief in the options behind him a lot recently, and I think that is sort of what is leading into this lack of, they don't have the room to run with here. If Calvin Austin is not going to be a part of this offense and they have no plans to further expand on the role for Pat Freiermuth or reintroduce him into the offense, I fail to see how they could go more than a game or two without having that second wide receiver option. So as much as I want to be patient and allow for that, I think the Steelers just don't have that luxury with this situation. I think they need Calvin Austin back on the field as soon as possible because there's no one else coming in to save them.
No, you're spot on there. The Steelers, if this was running back with Jaylen Warren, if this was tight end with anybody, or if this was pretty much any position on the defense, you are in a place where you have depth. The only position in Pittsburgh, really, quarterback included, because Mason Rudolph is not a bad backup, is wide receiver. And you can't sit around and say, we could take a chance that our offense takes a significant step backwards with Scotty Miller and Roman Wilson and Ben Skoranek on the field and say Calvin's okay. Now, that depends on the injury, because if Calvin is nursing a grade whatever is more dangerous, MC sprain or joint or something in his shoulder, and he's on the verge of like, yeah, all right, re-injury risk is high, and if it's high, it's a problem. That's a different conversation, because at that point you got to go, what, a game versus 8 weeks is, you pick your poison and you pick a game. If it's he's going to get through this and maybe it stays banged up for most of the year, but it's okay after that. Okay. It's in a much different situation, and you're okay to kind of push Calvin back onto the field and make things okay. Do you think it stops any conversation of anybody coming in here, regardless of how they come in here? But if Calvin is on the verge of being fine, is it just pointless to have any conversation of anybody coming to Pittsburgh?
Yes, I believe it is. And I know, it's not what many want to hear or many want the Steelers to be doing moving forward. Like the clamoring for that wide receiver help continues to ring loud around the Steelers, and that's not going to change until the actual season ends and the deadline passes and all that craziness. But Calvin Austin is the answer internally. Calvin Austin is the piece that many wish the Steelers would go out and get via trade. He's already on the roster. He is that missing X factor, and when he is on and as he continues to develop, they really believe he is that counter, that 1-2 punch with DK Metcalf. So I think as long as that is the case, if he's healthy enough, again, as you mentioned here, like if the chance of re-injury is high, it totally changes the direction that we're going in this whole entire conversation. But if it was just a cautious removal, they checked over everything, the x-rays are negative, he seems to be fine, he just took a tough hit, you got to get him back on the field. And I think it would effectively end all other wide receiver chatter, movements, trades, signings, etc. I think it all kind of should end there.
Yeah, I definitely agree. On the other side of that, Jaylen Warren most likely coming back against the Cleveland Browns. We felt that way. This is no like change to what our thoughts were on when Jalen would be back on the field, but there is the conversation of Kenny G versus Jaylen Warren and who should be the starter and how they should go about things. I personally do not think the Steelers should adjust anything to what they had it. Instead, find the mix, because if Kenny G's fine, Kenny G's a guy that's going to put up numbers and he's now a valuable piece of the offense. I love that, but I also think that Jaylen Warren's a better running back, and you put him on the field because he's a better running back. I don't think Kenneth Gainwell was the reason that the Steelers had over 100 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns. Do I think he was 50% of it? Yes, I do. But I think the other 50% was the fact that they had, at times, a lineup that consisted of an extra tackle, a 320-pound tight end, Connor Hayward, and Ben Skoranek on the football field, saying we have to be able to run the football. Like, if we can't do this, we just give up. This is the end of it. I think you put that same system out there, you figure it out that way, and have Jaylen Warren on the field. And I believe that you have an opportunity to do even better things, which is a tall task, but I'd be excited to see it. I look at it and say it's a mix where it's both of them, but Jaylen is still the guy. Do you feel differently? How do you view the Steelers running back situation once Jaylen comes back next week?
I think Jaylen is still unquestionably the number one guy. I think, and maybe this is not an opinion you share or some others share, but I really found Kenneth Gainwell's performance to be like a preview of what Jaylen Warren can do when the offensive line works. Not
Yes.
and and I think that 50% credit that you assigned to him in that game, Kenneth Gainwell, that is super accurate. Like he played above his skill set. He played above his usual role in the NFL. It was a great game for him. All credit deservedly so to him in picking up those 99 yards and fueling the rushing attack. I tend to believe, and the more I evaluate that game, that it was those slight adjustments along the offensive line. It was the way they had the Minnesota Vikings sort of stretched all over the place that really was the catalyst for this rushing attack improving. And Jaylen Warren, for all of his, kind of underwhelming stats through the first 3 games, like I think they all can be directed back and traced back to the offensive line's inability to sort of get that pushed for him. So now that they have found a way to do that and maybe are unlocking even more ways, I think it is just a positive sign and an encouraging one for Jaylen Warren's ability once he is back in the starting lineup. So he's my number one, unquestionably. You keep using Kenneth Gainwell as that change of pace back. Your pass blocking back in some certain situations. You have him in certain pass sets as well. But beyond that, Jaylen Warren's your guy until, another injury pops up, knock on wood, or something else changes the conversation.
Do you have a leash for Jaylen? I think that's an important question here. It's like, do you have a situation where Jaylen doesn't have a better performance, and then at some point you got to go to Kenneth after what you saw from Kenny G against the Vikings?
Yeah, I mean, yes, the leash has to be. I think the leash has to be short because I think the Steelers just to say the same thing again, the patience element is not here in every single situation for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They do not have the luxury of just being like, well, if Jaylen doesn't perform when he comes back for a couple of weeks and we're seeing multiple under 100 rushing yard games from the team as a whole, maybe that's your answer, right? Like you can't just ignore it just because you want Jaylen Warren to be the guy. I think he will come in here and impress once he is 100% healthy again. But if he is the problem in the rushing attack, you have to shift to Kenneth Gainwell. If Caleb Johnson looks better and better, taking 3 to 4 to 5, maybe more touches per game, he should get the ball more. If Kenneth Gainwell becomes the lead back, then great. To me, it's the leash has to be short and tight, and you have to be ready to yank back, but it can't be what's the right word? It can't be like a snap irrational decision. It has to be, you have to let him try, you have to give him a little bit of rope, but not too much, so to speak.
No, I agree. You look at Jaylen and say, you're the guy. We hope that you prove you're the guy. At no point are you riding the bench. Jaylen's not gone from the Pittsburgh Steelers offense at any point. He does too many things well. You're not going to take him off the field on 3rd down and say, oh man, Kenny G's a better runner right now, but we're not going to use you as a receiver. We're not going to allow you to pass block. No, you're still going to utilize him. And I just think it's who has the heavier hand. That's what the leash is. The leash decides which of the 2 running backs carries the ball more in a game. And it has, just like you said, has to be short, has to be tight, but at no point are you getting benched. It's just a matter of you're getting out snapped. And you do have to ride that hot hand. I think that hot hand has to be there. Only if Jaylen doesn't put it out. If Jaylen goes out there next week and they run the same style and Jaylen puts on a show against the Cleveland Browns, leash is long. It's that leash is, you've just extended that. If it's not that way, then I think you do have to pull it back and find yourself in a situation where you are kind of splitting hairs a little bit more and giving Kenny G more power in this offense to try and make some things work. All right. Let's talk Jaylen Warren, or we've just talked Jaylen Warren. We just talked Calvin Austin. Let's talk Colin Cowherd, my man. The last person on the planet, okay, that I would ever expect the Pittsburgh Steelers to receive any sort of positive news from, let alone logical positive news. It just doesn't work. You could talk. We shout out our boy Kevin, who yesterday gave a wild explanation of why the Pittsburgh Steelers need an inside linebacker when they don't. Colin Cowherd has done things like talk about how Chase Claypool is still on the Pittsburgh Steelers years after he's been gone. Colin Cowherd has mentioned things like Deontay Johnson when Deontay Johnson is not on the Pittsburgh Steelers. He has zero clue. I don't know if he's even ever watched a Pittsburgh Steelers game. I think he just watches TikTok, and once in a while Chase Claypool comes across his line and he goes, that guy, I gotta bring him up. I should bring him up next time I'm talking Pittsburgh Steelers. Well, this time he actually watched, and he had one wild remark. You want to know what that remark is? An apology. He said this about the Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback Aaron Rodgers, quote, I was wrong to call you snarky, prickly, weird, a snarky, prickly, weird uncle. Wild times. My bad, bro. You are a baller, not a bailer after all. You've been magnetic, energizing, and resilient. The rare, eccentric quarterback who is pointing the Steel City out of the darkness and into the light. Now, just for reference, this is what he said before. Neither take the duty of the quarterback with urgency, talking about Aaron Rodgers, but the Steelers and Aaron have we'll get to it eventually. I'll sign with them, the team eventually. We'll figure out the quarterback eventually. That is what he said during the offseason. He comes back to say, not a snarky, prickly uncle, which is wild how you came up with that. That is like the opposite of a Tomlinism. It is just wild. Absolutely god awful, but it's an apology from a man that has never apologized in his life. I mean, has made a living off of not apologizing to people. That is what he's done. Oh, I just want your reaction. He reacted to Aaron Rodgers. What's your reaction? You just saw that for the first time. You said before the podcast, I didn't even get a chance to see the apology. I'm excited to hear what you have to think now that you know he called Aaron Rodgers a snarky, prickly, weird uncle and has now taken it back.
I think my initial reaction is quite obvious here in that what a strange description of a person. Now, look, I'm certainly guilty myself of maybe offering some descriptions of people that I don't have the most information about, but to describe someone's personality as snarky and prickly when I imagine they have very little personal interactions between the two of them is wild. To apologize for it, I think, is even wilder. If I'm Colin Cowherd, now call me crazy, because I think you might, but if I'm Colin Cowherd, I'm not walking away from that crazy remark. Like it's not that I believe him or that I agree with him, to be perfectly clear. I just think if I am, a pundit who makes my work on slightly incendiary football takes and sports takes, I wouldn't walk them back when you just call someone a weird prickly uncle. Now that also being said, he's certainly proved Colin Cowherd wrong in terms of like the urgency comments. He is showing a lot of the doubters wrong. Aaron Rodgers is that he has a lot left in the tank, that he is, not the teammate that many people paint the picture of him to be. He is not the sort of, maybe not the person that he gets the reputation to have gotten in the media and online and stuff like that. So I get the idea, because I'm also guilty of this, of being like, well, now that I've had some interactions with him and I've seen him on a fairly regular basis, some of my judgments about him were certainly erroneous. And I think Colin Cowherd is feeling the same way. But, I think it's just too funny to walk back, I think is what I'm getting at.
I think it's the same thing. I mean, Aaron's a guy, I think I agree with maybe 4% of things Aaron Rodgers has said on like the Joe Rogan Experience and like all the random podcasts that he goes on. I don't think me and him would have dinner and sit there and be like, yeah, dude, we agree on anything outside of sitting in the darkness for 4 days. Because me and him have a good time on that. You know what I mean? You want to send me on a darkness retreat, an ayahuasca retreat, whatever, just say you got to test it out. I'd be like, if this gets me on to if we could have a good interview in this process, look at my journalism career is all about adventure. Let's do it. meeting him, knowing him, it's different, dude. It's different. He's a different guy than what I thought he was going to be. He's won me over instantly. He's won all of us over. But it doesn't matter. Who cares if he's won me and you over? I think it's hilarious. Colin Cowherd, a guy that I grew up. I knew I wanted to do this job since I was a little kid. You know, like I was the weirdo sitting in my front yard, throwing the football up to myself. And while I'm running, I'm like commentating on me like going to catch a touchdown. That's the strange child that I was. And my dad would make me listen to Colin Cowherd and tell me constantly, like, this guy, it's an act. And you like, this is the act. To pull back on the act, Aaron did something good. Aaron did something good. And I think he has. I think Aaron has looked crazy good for 41. Crazy good. Let me ask this question on Aaron, real off the wall here. Okay. Has your thoughts on, I mean, we're 4 games in. This will be an overreaction, obviously, but I don't care. We'll have an overreaction here. Has your early thoughts on Aaron climbing up the greatest quarterbacks ever list changed now that at 41 years old, he's doing the things he's doing? Because it's not like Aaron's one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. We're not going to, he's on that list, but he's not top of that list, but at 41 years old, what he's doing, you didn't see these guys do, you just don't see these guys do these things.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, was it yesterday or the other day we were talking about like how many quarterbacks over the age of 40 have, thrown for X amount of touchdowns? Like the list was exclusively like Tom Brady, right? And that makes complete sense. But the longevity here, the ability to not only be in the league and maintain, that level of health and somewhat level of production, but to be so strong looking through 4 games and to be, he's on pace to exceed 30 touchdowns. He's on pace to hit close to 3,500 passing yards. Like, we're not talking about an all-time season by Aaron Rodgers standards, but we're certainly talking about an above average elite season from a 41-year-old quarterback. So I think that is just another feather in his cap, another notch on, the belt, another, whatever you want to call it, where, maybe he was, top 10, top 7 or something like that, undisputed. Now you got to ask the question, if he continues this, that's the big caveat here. That's the big overhanging question here. If he can continue this MVP level performance and the Steelers as a team go farther, I mean, I think that's a huge, huge notch in his resume. And just, again, like a Tom Brady, being able to lead multiple teams to the quote unquote promised land in an advanced age is something that no quarterbacks aside from Brady have really been able to do. So if he can continue on that trend, we have to have a serious conversation about where he fits in the all-time best.
Yeah, I think he's got an opportunity. First off, if he somehow pulls off a Super Bowl, which it's early, it's way too early, and I would not guess the Steelers are winning a Super Bowl. But if he somehow pulls off a Super Bowl, I think he's climbed himself into top 10 of all time, because multiple Super Bowls, like, that's the caveat here, is like, but I think he's even higher. Like, I think he might go down as the most underrated quarterback ever, because you look at a guy who is going to finish top 5 on almost every list across quarterbacks in NFL history, who's a 4-time MVP and who's won multiple Super Bowls. Like, that's a guy that, if that's Peyton Manning, and he's known as the greatest passer of a football ever, ever. That's a guy that, if it's Peyton Manning, he's number 1. And we're talking about how he's better than, Tom Brady. If that's Tom Brady, it's whatever. Like, that's who I think Aaron Rodgers fell in the mix of. Like, there were all these guys here and didn't do enough, like Aaron has only won 1 Super Bowl. 1 Super Bowl is just not, it's not enough. I mean, you didn't do enough to put yourself in that conversation of the greatest ever. You win 2, even at 41 years old, it's a conversation to be had. It's a conversation to be had for sure. And I'd be very interested to see, like, where that list would sit after the season. You got to do some things. You lose in the first round of the playoffs again. Right. Like, there's no conversation to be had. You're right where you were, pal. It was a good time. We had fun for a couple of weeks. You're right there. You're right there. I just don't think it changes. But it is a good conversation. And he's starting that conversation. And it's fun to watch. It's definitely fun to watch, for sure. Shout out to Colin Cowherd, man. The guy that before we start answering questions, last dumb question I have for you.
Please.
It's a Friday. It's the bye week. What are we even doing? We're having a good time here. All Steelers talk. I'm on a Verizon plan now. You know what I mean? I'm living life. On the list of guys that you never in a million years would expect an apology from in sports media towards the Pittsburgh Steelers, where does he sit? You don't have to name names if you don't want to, but like I got a list for sure.
Give me one while I stew on that, because I feel like you're ready for it.
Oh, I am. And I love all these guys. Great dudes. I've met a lot of them. So no disrespect, just hilarious. You know what I mean? Doug Whaley, easily up there. Andrew Filipponi, easily up there. And Pony's a great dude, man. Super nice guy. Met him a bunch of times. Like really, really nice, good dude. Good at what he does. Andrew Filipponi's easily on that list. Doug Whaley's easily on this list. Who else is on this list? Oh, Mike Tattenbaum is on that list. That guy hates the Pittsburgh Steelers. Chris Collinsworth is on that list. Colin Cowherd. That might be top 5 right there. That's
a great
5.
list.
Yeah, I think Colin Cowherd might be like 2 on that list. Mike Tattenbaum will never apologize in his life. That guy doesn't even know what an apology is. You know what I mean? Cowherd might be chasing Chris Collinsworth.
I feel like the OG hater, and RIP, but was John Madden, right? Like that. Like the dude just hated the Steelers with every fiber of his being. Yeah. And probably the only one of the people mentioned who had like the most reason to, because they just act like they actually played against each other.
Yeah.
That was the rivalry that defined the era in the NFL. Yeah. So that
one made sense.
That one makes sense. The rest, like Chris Collinsworth, like I played for the Bengals. It's like, well, we don't care. The Steelers certainly don't.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's great.
It's a good list, right? Nick Wright could be on that list. You could toss Nick Wright on that list. He's on that list for sure.
More like Nick Wrong.
Nick Wrong, always wrong. It's a wild list, man. Colin Cowherd, never thought in a million years, but here we are. All right, guys. That's everything on our agenda. We're going to take a quick break. On the other side of it, we're going to start answering all your questions, so make sure that you're tossing them in the chat. We'll be right back. What's up, AST Nation? I've teamed up with DraftKings. The next great touchdown is coming, and you can bet on it. The best way to do so is through DraftKings Sportsbook, where new customers who bet $5 get $200 in bonus bets if your bet wins. Love the thrill of live betting? DraftKings has got you covered. Bet live on in-progress games right as they happen. Then use your bonus bets to stay in on the action and bet DraftKings same-game parlays for a shot at an even bigger payout. With the offense still finding its groove, now might be the best time to take some shots during the season. And don't worry, if sports betting is not yet available in your state, you're fine. You can still join in on all of the fun with DraftKings daily fantasy sports and have the shot to win cash prizes. New customers bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets if your bet wins. Sign up using my promo code ALLSTEELERS and get in on the action. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Shout out our boys over at DraftKings. I'm so excited because I was in Dublin and I almost made my bets, then quickly realized that I would have got that pay in euros. And I just don't, I think tax implications, if I was like, hey, Mr. Accountant Man, this year on my taxes, you have to also include that I won and or let's be honest, lost a lot of money in European money. I don't really know how that situates itself out. So we held out this week. We're sitting there. You want to know what my weekend's going to consist of? You want to know what my Sunday is going to consist of? I'm going to sit on the couch. I'm going to drink way too much coffee. Way too much. There's nothing better than a Sunday morning where you make a pot of coffee knowing I'm going to drink the whole thing. And I am going to gamble until I cannot gamble, until I will get so many alerts from DraftKings that says you've been active for 12 hours straight. Yeah, I don't care, brother. Okay. I'm having a good time. We're having a good time. And then I'm going to lose a boatload of money and we're going to be fine. We're going to be fine. Shout out to DraftKings. All right. Let's start answering your guys' questions. If you got them, toss them in the chat. We'll get to as many of them as we can until we head out of here. With that said, let's start with respect to the Roonies. Crazy to think Chris Boswell has scored 1,155 points. It is, I believe, 10 years today 8 years today, 7 years today. Today is the anniversary. I don't remember how many years of Chris Boswell signing with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Absolutely nuts. Debo as in James Harrison, said he owes that man. He created Chris Boswell, which he did. If you've ever heard the Chris Boswell story of Debo standing there saying, "I'm gonna wash your back," if he missed a kick, and that's what it was. Did you ever hear that story?
No, I know. I had the impression is what got me.
The impression was perfect, dude. "I'm gonna wash your back." That's what he said as he stood there. Could you imagine, of all men in the whole world, James Harrison standing this close to you, saying that you've been here for an hour, okay? You don't even know where your locker is yet. And this guy's standing here and you're going, wow, now my pants are soaked in urine. That sucks. And now I have to kick this field goal. And if I miss it, I got to wash his back. This is awful. Shout out to James Harrison, man. Scariest guy alive. Shout out to Chris Boswell, who that's an insane amount of points. Okay. We're going to talk crazy list today. Is Chris Boswell ever going to be considered greatest kicker of all time?
Ooh, that's a great question. I think man. So here's my one holdup. I think the answer immediately that I was going to say is yes, he's in the conversation. How many of the other ones had 2 seasons where their field goal percentage was like what's the right word, like abysmally low, right? Like there's 2 outlier years in Chris Boswell's career. He's like a 92% field goal kicker or something ridiculous like that. But then I think it was 2022 or something like that, he was hurt and he missed a bunch of field goals. And then 2018 or something like that, I want to say, was the other one where he was just not very good. Or maybe that's backwards, but like there's 2 seasons that were not great from Chris Boswell. My question is, are the other quote unquotes greatest of all times, do they have those sort of outlier seasons as well? I'm happy to look into that a little bit here, if you give me your take.
So I think that's a good point. So Justin Tucker up until last season was the greatest kicker of all time. That was my thoughts. I think the fall off was so drastic that it didn't leave him. Like, what is Justin Tucker's? We can look it up here. Like Justin Tucker, how long did he do it for? I think is significant. Like he did it for 13 years. For 12 years, he was great for 12 seasons. I think that's a pretty substantial amount of time, because before him, in my eyes, it was Jason Elam. I think Jason Elam was the greatest kicker ever. I think that guy was crazy good. Adam Vinatieri, I think, was up there for sure. I think Vinatieri would probably be number 2 in my eyes. But if you look at their numbers, they're not crazy. Like they spend a lot of seasons with like 80%, 85%, somewhere in that ballpark. It's pretty new for these guys to be doing these crazy, like, oh, I hit 95% of my field goals. Like that's very new to the NFL. And I don't know what changed, but I think Chris Boswell, if he could do it for 13 years, has a really good conversation to be had.
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't disagree with any of that. There was someone, oh man, I was watching somebody complain about the field goal kicking balls they're using this year. And I feel like that's going to be an added conversation that just keeps happening while people are like, well, everyone's making 60-yarders because they could rough up the footballs. And it's like, who cares, dude? Like they're trying to score more points.
Tom Brady got caught with deflated footballs. He's still by far, without question, the greatest quarterback of all time. You know what I mean? Like, and I can care. You could be like, well, he cheated. I don't care. He's still fantastic. These are rules. These are rules. I just like follow him. And Chris Boswell is great. He's done it for, he's 11 years in the league. 11 years in the league with the Steelers. He's got 1, 2, 3, 4 seasons under 90%. If he could do it 2 more or 3 more years, I think he's got it. Like, I think it's going to be real hard for him not to be, at least in the conversation. Like, at least it's like when you're naming the top 3, because it's kickers. Like, there's no undeniable greatest kicker of all time. But when you're talking that conversation, I think it'd be really hard to keep him out.
Yeah, no, I think that's totally fair.
Chris here, guys. We are so deep on the defensive line, but not as much at inside linebacker. Do you think we would be better served playing a 4-3 defense to maximize our talents? No. I think it's like when you have the conversation of changing a defensive scheme, the one thing that gets left out all the time is that these players are not built for that defensive scheme. TJ Watt does not fit in a 4-3 defense at all. Like, Nick Herbig doesn't fit in a 4-3 defense at all.
Right.
These guys, you don't have outside linebackers anymore. You have defensive ends. You need Myles Garrett's, which Alex Highsmith would fit. The other guys would not. So you change so much of your defense and who's there that it just doesn't, like, that's the part of the conversation nobody ever has when they ask questions like this, is that, what you're changing, what you have to changes personnel too. It doesn't just change like, oh, well, we have more defensive linemen, let's make sure that those guys are out there. Like, you're not dropping TJ Watt back. You're not saying like, oh, TJ, you're gonna play off ball now. Yeah, like, no, that would not work at all. And you're not gonna make him a defensive tackle, and you don't have anybody else. Like, who are you gonna like Jack Sawyer's not dropping back. That's an even worse conversation to have. So I think it makes it actually the Steelers defense is built significantly worse for a 4-3 than a 3-4 with the personnel they have right now.
Yes, I agree with that 100%. Here's the weird, like, defensive thing that I would like to see the Steelers do is certainly stay within a 3-4, but like, how do they incorporate all three of their really strong edge rushers into the game at one time? Like they talk about how do we split the middle linebackers, and they have these ways to sort of platoon players. Can they find that same sort of success with Alex Highsmith coming back soon, keeping Nick Herbig on the field, keeping TJ Watt satisfied and, in his best element? So I think there's ways to experiment and explore, just not sure completely flipping to a 4-3 scheme would be the best thing for the Steelers right now. It would be a long-term sort of overhaul.
Yeah, I certainly agree on that. I just think there's too much that goes into it. You can't do it in the middle of a season. Poke Herbig chicken breast salad with a fantastic serial killer Chris Boswell icon there. That's pretty dope. Keep Warren out until he's 100% healthy. He will be the guy come late in the season. Also, why is Peppers not playing over anyone? Gotta spice it up. With Jaylen Warren, I don't disagree, but I wonder how close to 100% he is. Like, I don't think he was very far away from 100% to miss the game. I think it was more so like, we're not going to risk him taking any steps backwards. A week off could get you pretty close to that 100%. You're a running back. You're almost never going to be at 100% during a season. If you could get him to 90, you feel pretty good about it. When it comes to Jabril Peppers, I was surprised he didn't play at all, I don't think, on defense against the Minnesota Vikings. That being said, Chuck Clark's going to start. He's been here all summer. That's going to be the guy for right now. We all saw that coming. I expected him to outsnap Juan Thornhill. He didn't. That surprised me, but Juan Thornhill played well against Minnesota. So I can't complain about it, even if it is a surprise. I expect Peppers to get more snaps. However, he's got to take full advantage of those snaps. Otherwise, I could see kind of just what the Steelers showed against Minnesota. It's not as clear cut as I thought it was going to be. And he's going to have to take advantage to earn those more opportunities.
Mm-hmm. I think I listen, I agree with like the preserving of players sort of mentality and the like trying to keep everybody fresh. But I just think the Steelers will be better served in the long run the quicker they can get Jaylen Warren sort of just like back into the fold and getting this offense kind of clicking through him. As much as I like Kenneth Gainwell's ability to sort of fill in and provide some different aspects and elements of the game, like this, they won't reach their next like level, or like maybe they won't reach the next status that they certainly can unless they get Jaylen Warren back and running effectively behind that offensive line. So I think while I get the sense of keeping him healthy, it's very important. It's very important. I just think having him back on the field in some capacity is also incredibly important, and no one is ever 100% in the NFL.
No, I very much so agree here. Shout out to Big Ol' Salad Man. What a great name as our newest member. Make sure you're calling in to the call-in show. We will answer this one as we talk about that one. Yins or Jake, all Steelers talk. When is the call-in shows, and when should I call to leave a message? You could call in anytime, really after the games. Like it makes way more sense if you call Sunday afternoon on, because the show airs Wednesday. I'm trying to cut back on the calls that come in the week prior. If they make sense, I keep them. If they don't make sense, I tend to cut them just because we get so many of them. If we need a second show, they typically go out either Thursday or Saturday, depending on timing and Steelers schedule and that kind of stuff. But always Wednesdays at between 12 and 1 o'clock is when they are rocking. Chris here. Guys, I feel like Boswell is our X factor. His ability to make clutch kicks takes the Steelers from good to great. Bos is our MVP. Thoughts? I mean, Chris Boswell is an absolute stud. Mm-hmm. You cannot be a good team with a MVP kicker. You just can't. Those are the rules of the thumb. The rules of the MVP. Yeah, of football. You know, last year it was the Steelers MVP really was Chris Boswell, and like nobody really wanted to admit it because that's an awful admission. I feel like you can't be. That being said, Chris Boswell is special teams MVP and an absolute dynamite of a player and can't be undervalued. And I think should win. Is there like a kicker of the year award? If there is, Chris Boswell should win it every year since Justin Tucker's gone.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. I think he is without a doubt the king of NFL kickers right now. Like he is the top of the class. I wouldn't call him the MVP. I won't spoil it, but I did write something recently about who I think is the early season MVP of the Pittsburgh Steelers, and it's not Chris Boswell. So I'll leave it at that. I think there's lots of good options, lots of players that have been surprising, but there's one person in particular that I think will come out tomorrow morning, Noah?
Tomorrow morning. It'll drop at 7 a.m. And let me tell you, I was pretty stunned. Pretty stunned by this MVP. So I'm excited for you guys to check that one out. I do think Chris is, there's like MVP adjacent. Mm-hmm. That's Chris Boswell. Sean Sturgis, shout out my guy. If you got a comment, make sure that you toss it in here as well. I'll try to find it. Didn't mean to miss it as we keep it trucking here. Caden, glad James Daniels is a Miami Dolphin. Yeah, for sure. I like the Jackson Powers Johnson conversation we had yesterday. I think James Daniels is a good player. I'm pretty sure he's out for the season, which stinks. You hate to see that happen. I thought he was always incredibly intelligent, banged up the last 2 years, which you hate to see, especially because he was going to get paid in free agency. And I'm always pro, like, go get the bag, man. Now he's dealing with back-to-back injuries. You hate to see that as the guard market is starting to spike. It sucks to see. That being said, I'm a big Mason McCormick guy. I think he's got a bright future for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Cody Silva, would you trade the Jags for Tim Patrick? Don't know anything about him. Trade offer would be a 7th-round pick. Read this in an article. I think Tim Patrick actually just got traded to or from
the Lions. Traded him, right? Didn't they trade for him? Didn't they get him from the Broncos last year? And
yeah. And then they traded him to Jacksonville this year. So he's new to Jacksonville now. I've always thought Tim Patrick's a good wide receiver. Mm-hmm. I don't think he adds, I just don't think the Steelers need to replace Scotty Miller with somebody that's like even slightly better than Scotty Miller. Like, I just don't. You just need, in my eyes, if the wide receiver that you're adding is not significantly better than what's on the roster already, I don't even feel that there's a conversation to be had, because it just doesn't make, like, you're trading for a 7th-round pick. I get it. Like, I definitely get it. But you're trading for Tim Patrick just to put him on the bench, and use him for 7 snaps every other game. That just, like, to me, it's just not there, and it's going to take them weeks to get established. To me, it just doesn't. I'm not making a trade unless it's a big trade by the Pittsburgh Steelers.
100% agree. I'll take every opportunity I can to say like these are just not needle moving transactions for the Pittsburgh Steelers. These are not realistic options to actually elevate this offense. Like I respect Tim Patrick as a player. Like I thought last year there was probably more of an argument to bring him in to sort of round out the wide receiver core instead of someone like Mike Williams. But this year it would be basically having Scotty Miller and Scotty or Miller just right next to each other. So it's like
the
I
taller
just
Scotty Miller.
yeah, like, and so we're not doing anything crazy here. I do like it does make me think of like one random question. Are there like rules about players being moved like more than once in a year or in a like calendar year? I know in the NHL there's like specific requirements where like if a team trades someone away, they couldn't, reacquire him in a certain amount of time, stuff like that. Just wondering if probably the answer is no, but it just made me think, are there players besides like Kenny Pickett who just get traded with regularity, and are there any protections against that?
It just goes to the team. So if you traded for Deontay Johnson, you can't trade, or for Deontay was the example last year. You traded Deontay Johnson. You can't trade back for Deontay Johnson for 18 months. That's what it is. So okay. Yeah, you could trade as many times as you want. Kenny Pickett's going to get traded again. And that's bonkers to me. Like that guy is going to he's going to play on every NFL team before he turns 27. Like that's just, that's so nuts. But yeah, no, there's nothing there outside of that you have to worry about. But I very much so agree with you. Chris, can we agree that our special teams coach deserves a raise? Danny Smith deserves all the money in the world. Okay. We should just collectively gather all of everyone's money and give it to good old Danny Smith. I don't care how good of a coach he is, just because he's the most awesomest. Let's use the word awesomest person on the planet. Danny Smith is a 72-year-old stud of a human being. Like this guy, let's just add the qualities here. Chews more gum than the average human. Is the only 72-year-old man who can actively get the crap beat out of him during football games. Like this man he's come to us at the end of seasons and been like, oh, I got a torn rotator cuff from Mark Robb, just tackled me after a good play. The hip's out of place, but we'll get that fixed in the offseason. And you're just like, how are you standing? And he's like, I ain't even worried about it. He's a full-blown yinzer. And when I say full-blown yinzer, like he'll show up at the bar during training camp. He'll outdrink everybody there, and then he'll come walking by you with a smile on your face as you are hungover, ready to die at 9 a.m. at Latrobe College, and he'll be like, ready for a day, let's go. Yeah, he's a man, dude. He is the greatest man ever. Shout out to Danny Smith, bro. What an absolute
goat status. Goat status. I do believe that he gets paid in gum. Am I correct? So they can just increase the wad of bubble gum that he chews on in practice. I tell you what, there's nothing more entertaining whenever I'm there at the facilities than listening and watching Danny Smith go through the special teams, their practice situations and their drills. Like you talk about players wanting to run through a wall for their head coach and Mike Tomlin, and that man certainly gets his team fired up. Like you can't really describe it in a way that feels fair enough until you see sort of the way players respond to him. That same thing is, for a special teams coach, Danny Smith like commands attention and is magnetic in a way that is just like crazy for someone who is a special teams coach. And those players they'd kill for him. It's pretty apparent. And I think that is question. Like, yeah. So, give him 12 more packs of gum and let's do this thing.
I hope one day we find out he chews Hubba Bubba. I just hope that that's the case.
Let's bring him a tub,
dude. Respect to the Roonies. Does Kenny Pickett just live in his car? He probably should, dude. I want to know where his wife hangs out. Like, does she travel with him? She just like, is she like, do I really have to move for 6 months? We have a dog. Like, do we have to do these things? Like, I don't know what's going on. Shout out to Kenny, man. I hope the car is nice, at least. I hope the car is nice.
His poor wife, dude. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah,
that's got to be miserable.
You got to have a base somewhere, and she's never in football season's. Just I'll see you in 6 months.
Yeah, right.
Deuces. Caden, what's your favorite beer? People make fun of me for this all the time, dude. But I am I got two. I got obviously, like, you go to, like, you have like a real beer, and then you have your like bar beer. The bar beer is a Mick Ultra. People make fun of me all the time. It's just what I grew up drinking, man. Okay, when you were partying in the woods with all your dumb high school friends, everybody had Mick Ultras, and that's just what we drank. But I'm a Four Seasons IPA guy. That Four Seasons out here in the Berg slaps. And then the Dancing Gnome. You can't go wrong with a Dancing Gnome. Jacob doesn't.
Ooh. I don't drink, so I have a bad answer.
Not a drinker. He ain't got no answer on that one. Ain't got no answer. Ball treatment specialist. What is the largest animal? How did we get here? What is the largest animal you think you could beat in a fight? I know Noah said a couple of weeks ago he's afraid of deer. I'm not afraid of deer, okay? I'm not. There's no part of me that's afraid of deer. All I said was I walked around the corner and it looked like a horror movie, all right? We're taking it too literal. Dude, I don't know. I don't even know, man. I think I could take down a small wolf, maybe. Probably not. Like,
no, I bet, because listen, they'll get you. They're gonna cut you up a little bit for sure.
That's what I'm saying.
But like, you could pin it down for sure. You could win that. You can outpower that. I would maybe. Maybe I would take something. You know who I think I could square up?
I'm so excited for this.
Is a panda bear. I don't think that MFer would know what hit him with that smooth brain it's got, because those things just don't even. They're basically dead the minute they live. You know what I mean? All they do is hang on trees and eat eucalyptus, which is slowly killing them. Look it up. They are not meant to eat it, but they do it anyways because they got smooth brains. And so I think that maybe I'm mixing up animals. Who cares? I'm not a zoologist. But I could smack around a panda, I think, if I could.
Pandas would give you their child for an apple. That's like a known thing, is that pandas will give up their babies for
koala.
Food.
Not a
koala
panda.
Would murder you, bro. Koala would murder you. Have you ever heard about koala stories?
They're so stupid.
Those of you who don't know the backstory of this, I at one time was somewhat close. To moving to Australia and playing lacrosse over there because I thought I was cool. That would have been terrible. And you watch a movie, they send you like this info packet or whatever, and in the little info packet movie thing, it's don't touch the koalas. They'll kill you, bro. They will mess you up. They will mess you up, dude. They are brutal animals and they are not fun. So scared. Panda bear's a good one though. Panda bear's just smacking around, push it down a hill or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Would suck.
I mean, look, here's the real answer is that there's probably not many that I could take on, right?
No.
Because these are all equipped to handle themselves in the wild. I am a domesticated boy. Like, what chance do I have if this wolf actually has these super sharp claws, faster than me? You know what I mean? Like, you ever see the video? Now we're getting off the rails, but whatever. You see the video of the Australian guy who just straight up punches a kangaroo who has his dog in a chokehold.
You know the exact one. You know the exact one, dude. He's got that, and the kangaroo's just stuck.
He's stunned.
He's stunned. Ooh. Yeah.
Never would have been me. Like, I know I would do anything for my dogs, and I would probably have thrown myself in a torpedo sort of way to save them. But the fact that he just full on was ding, ding, ding,
dude. To be honest,
this kangaroo.
I think a kangaroo would be fun, just because they're not going to try to eat you. That's where it gets me.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to try to eat me, I'll fist fight you. You know what I mean? I'll get a little, but I'm not. If you're trying to bite me, that's where it's just all right, bro, get out. That's gonna hurt. Stop. Everybody's been punched in the face once or twice. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's been like, ah. I'm like, ah, what? Ow, what was that? That's
never been in a bar fight where they bite you,
where they bit me. No, that's where we draw the line. At that point, I'm like, I'm out of here. This isn't even fun anymore. Yeah, no. Kangaroo's a good answer. I think kangaroo's a good answer. Panda's a good answer, but I don't know if we're allowed to say that. They're like almost extinct. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I won't fight any animal.
No, at
Just to
the
be
end of the
very
day, dude, I'd
clear.
let my cats eat me. You know what I mean? Like if that's,
Yeah,
that's
I'm.
just what it
It's
is.
their
Like I
world
wouldn't.
too.
It's their
I don't
really their world. I'm living in it. You know what I mean?
exactly.
You do what you want there, brother. You know what I mean? You do what I cross the street in the morning if I see a stray cat because I don't want to. I just don't want to bother the cat. I'm like, you're like hanging out there. You know what I mean? I want you to. I know you're gonna get scared. Like, I'll walk
Yeah.
over here. I got legs. We're fine. Shout out Caden. Becoming a YouTube member. Shout out my guy. Make sure you're calling in to the Colin Show. Appreciate the questions today for sure. Let's keep it trucking. Almost all-star. I take your point, Jacob. We're talking about wide receivers here. However, aren't we going to be having the same conversation after the trade deadline when he or DK get hurt? I mean, I think that's a very speculative question. You know, like what if nobody gets hurt? I don't disagree with that. The point being, do you take precaution now for the future?
Right. And I think that's a very fair way to frame it. And I think listen, that's a great point from Almost All-Star here. I just, as smart as that is, I don't have a smart or smarter response back to it as to why the Steelers don't want to pursue this. But yes, if that happens, we're having the exact same conversation post week 8 about how they probably should have added more to the roster and given themselves enough depth to withstand a long-term injury. They think that's what they're doing. Like I guess that's like what I keep coming back to is like, I don't agree with it. I know Noah doesn't feel the same way. Like, I don't know many people in here are like, what are they doing? Just go get a wide receiver. The sentiment's not shared in that locker room and in that management team. And I just think we might have this conversation post week 8 if a major injury occurs. The Steelers are banking on, they're not living in their fears, to use Mike Tomlin's quotes. Like they think that their combination of Calvin Austin and DK Metcalf is the duo they want to run with. So once they have it, they're not going to pursue further upgrades on it or further supplementation of that group.
Oh, what a way to use that word. I very much so agree. I just think the Steelers they have a plan. They believe in their plan. They're going to move forward with it. I think that's how most teams approach it. Nobody's like, oh man. But at the end of the day, like here's the thing. If week 8 rolls around, week 9 rolls around, Calvin goes down, you call Odell Beckham Jr. You call Deontay Johnson, which are not great examples, but you're not going to get anybody of that quality anyways. You're not going to get a starter. You're not calling about Chris Olave. You're not calling about any of these guys because they're not going to come over. You're not looking for those guys. You're looking for the Tim Patrick. You go get a Tim Patrick. Call up Keyshawn Williams, see if he works. Call up Isaiah Hodgins, see if he works. But I just think that you're getting roughly the same batch of guys that you could find on the open market at that time. Yins or Jake, could Herbig wreak havoc at middle linebacker, thinking back to the 2000s linebacker room, and they were all great rushers, maybe twist him to the outside after the snap and have Herbig / Highsmith or Herbig / Watt both rushing? I don't think he needs to be an inside linebacker necessarily. I think what works better is, allowing 3 inside linebackers on the field and go watch Micah Parsons. You know what I mean? He lines up in all the gaps. And I think Herbig be really good at that. I think Watt would be really good at that. And honestly, I think Alex Highsmith would be good at that too. I think that's the solution, is to have all 3 of those guys on the field and have somebody kind of working his way in between the gaps, lining up next to Cam Hayward's butt and rushing right next to him, like that kind of stuff. Allowing him to, rush in different gaps. I think that's better than, taking an inside linebacker off the field and then hoping it works.
Yeah, I think my big concern about that with Herbig is I don't really like, he's fine in pass coverage on the edge if they have to drop him back, but I would not feel as confident with him being a middle linebacker and taking up some of those duties over the middle of the field as well. And the other part is, like, what is making Nick Herbig so impressive this year is his ability to use athleticism on the edge, in my opinion. So, like, if you take that and move it to just the middle linebacker position, does that same explosive athleticism sort of shine through? I don't know. I don't feel confident in that answer one way or the other, but I do know that he's doing some great work on the edge, and teams are not having enough time or resources to sort of find a counterpunch to that in the meantime. So I love the idea Noah brings up here of like putting, TJ Watt, who's like your biggest, bulkiest edge rusher, like putting him in an A or B gap and seeing if that has any effect while keeping Highsmith and Herbig on the field as well. But then you're sacrificing in other ways to do that. All that being said, I love what Herbig is doing. I think it should continue to happen as an edge rusher, not as a middle linebacker.
I agree. I very much so agree. All right, got a couple of housekeeping, and then we'll finish it off with one trade question here. Sajan, Noah, I'm back with the same question from last year. If we go 5-1 in the AFC North, will you go bald? The one loss is because we sat our starters in Week 18 against the Ravens. The answer is no, my friend. Not even close. You could get me to grow a mullet. You could tell me to grow the hair out. You could get me to shave a mustache. I'll do a lot of crazy things. I will never, ever, ever go bald. Just not happening. I shave my head like every other year and just let it rock, but will never, ever, ever, ever go bald until the universe tells me I have to. And at that point, the chances are I'm going to have to do a couple of pods in turkey because, we're getting some hair added to the head. Another one here. Will there be an AST golf tournament this upcoming off season? That would be awesome. I suck at golf. I play golf all the time, but I suck at it. I'm really bad. So we'd have to figure that one out. Would be cool if we could, come up with a charity and kind of make that thing work. That would be definitely sick. Yeah. Dalton, hey, Noah, rate on a scale of 1 to 10 Gainwell's performance and rate Peyton Wilson's rundown of Addison. Peyton Wilson's rundown is a 10 without question. That guy, nobody should be that fast. Watching it in person was like, holy smokes, this is going to happen. Oh my God, he's going to get him. Oh my gosh, he's going to get him. And then he got him. Kenny Gainwell's, I give Kenny G an 8. I give Kenny G a strong 8. He's looking damn good out there. 5.2 yards per carry is impressive. 2 touchdowns is impressive. Running through guys, impressive. 99 yards is 100 yards in my book. I give him an 8. What's your scores?
Yeah, 8 sounds great for the Vikings game. I'd call him probably like a 5.5 overall so far this year. I think he's been good. Room for improvement still. Peyton Wilson's rundown was a 10 out of 10. That was incredible. That boy has legs, man. That boy's so fast, my lord.
Yeah. Now everybody just wants me to have a mustache. Nate needs more salad. My wife says you should dye your mustache pink if they go undefeated. I just can't. I can't go in the locker room like that. There's got to be limitations to what gets me. You know what I mean? Could you imagine? TJ, I have this question for you, and then he just bursts out laughing, and I'm kicked out of the locker room. You know what I mean? Forever. So, sorry. My wife already hates the mustache. She won't even look at me. So, we got to, lines. We'll finish it off with Jim D here. Hey, no, what about Muth and Roman for Ridley and Dan Moore Jr.? I think we shot down the trade yesterday. I feel bad for this one, but no, I'm also saying no on this one. I don't think you get anywhere close to the value that you're giving up for Ridley and Dan Moore Jr. Like, they've wanted to get rid of Dan Moore Jr., and I'm a big Dan Moore guy. Love Dan Moore. Don't think he replaces Broderick in any way that gives you hope for the future. And Ridley, like Jacob pointed out the other day, has not played well. So it's like, I just think it's an easy no for me.
Yeah, as much as I'd love to find a nice trade for Roman, I don't think this is the one to do it. No, Dan Moore Jr. I think is what really puts me off of this one. Not because I dislike Dan Moore Jr., but like they didn't pay him for a very specific reason. Tennessee chose to. I wouldn't want that contract back under the salary cap in Pittsburgh, under no matter what else you got back with it. So I love the idea, love the thought. Not super keen on the players involved.
I very much so agree. All right, guys. With that said, we're heading out of here. Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Check us out anywhere you get your podcasts. And as always, find all of our work at si.com/NFL. Steelers. I know Punturi's playbook was supposed to come out today, had some technical difficulties on my end. So that will come out tomorrow morning. Make sure that you're hyped for it because it's a good one. Until then, enjoy another beautiful day in the Berg.